Warning. The following may contain concepts, ideas, and/or reflections unique in nature and not yet approved by government and/or corporate entities. This content is for entertainment purposes only and is not intended to stimulate further reflection or to perpetuate additional discourse beyond the scope already outlined by institutional curriculum.
A little too bright in here?
No, man. Let our light shine.
Well,
I think it's fine. All right. Today is Friday. You know what that means?
Party on it, or
We get a weekend. And you know why we get a weekend?
we're going to give our viewers a break.
Well,
There's
it
many
could be that,
viewers.
but we're also giving ourselves a break.
Oh,
But you know what's great about it?
I don't even find this work. I find it's fun.
Yeah, well, you're not doing the video editing. That's why you're not. I just sit there and talk, and
No, I sit there and listen. You do the talking.
Well,
Anyways.
I didn't know that was fun for you. But anyways,
No, I ain't.
what we're going to talk about is employment. Everybody is always talking about what are the employment numbers? Who's employed? What's the unemployment? Whoa, this is going to create jobs. We need to create more jobs. We need to bring jobs back to America.
Yeah, it's a real job-centric society.
But what if we told you that jobs and employment are bullshit and you don't need it? Let's cue the intro.
Okay, Joe.
Okay, so we've developed this in our era of modernity, of this concept that everything is centered around work and jobs. Now it's
Whoa, don't get too carried away.
okay.
Maybe this was created by spin doctors on Madison Avenue by the elites to kind of get people conditioned into psychologically seeing themselves as grunts or employees, beholden and behest to the employer.
Well, and even this concept of hourly work is something that I think is even more so a modern invention. Because even if you think about people that were employed in, the Middle Ages or whatever, like, okay, so you got some stonemasons, they're commissioned or hired. A lot of these people would have been basically their own boss in a sense, like they're just contracted out for a certain job.
Right.
And that would be
probably.
the thing, is that they're paid for a job. We're building a church, and when it's done, that's the job. You're not paid just to show up.
But
right?
we don't have to go that far back into the past, though, although we could. But if you consider that at the turn of the 20th century, most of Americans were rural. So they were agrarian, small farms.
Not only that, though, but like this idea of conglomerates wasn't there. What were a few for sure, but like a huge percentage. For example, I don't know if people know this, but in World War I, there wasn't like a united footwear maker in the United States. So the Pentagon had drawn up like the parameters and the dimensions that these army boots needed to be. And basically you had like 1,000 small cobblers that basically got the contracts to make maybe 100 boots for the U.S.
so
Army
they're
or
looking
whatever.
at, okay, this is the grade of leather. It needs to be so thick. And this is the schematics.
Yeah, and then
It's pretty simple
maybe like
for
an
it.
officer for the Army would be inspecting to make sure that, that they were built to specifications. But the reality is this like, see, we have this lie that's being perpetuated, especially by these large corporations that say, if we're going to do something at scale, we have to have everything centralized into a monopolistic company that then has maybe like 100,000 employees working for them, right? But in our history, we actually see that you could have a consortium of small business owners that can still satisfy those huge needs of a behemoth army fighting in a world war.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like saying, okay, we have a set price for, let's say, scrap metal.
Yeah.
Or plastics, so much per ton or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you can have anybody can employ themselves to go around scrounging for this metal.
Well, I know, but
you just don't take it off of the poles.
I remember when we were living in Princeton, British Columbia, Canada, and they had like the old pictures of these lumberjacks and stuff, and like they're hauling out these massive trees with just like these huge workhorses.
Right.
And in that day, there was a lot of people that were lumberjacks. They were like their own boss. The mill would pay for whatever
foot you bring in, so much timber.
And people just go out there themselves with their horse and their saws, and they'd be basically just their own boss. And you're not an hourly employee then. You're basically like, this is it's all about the goal.
Yeah,
right?
You don't have someone saying, "You're hungry now, eat."
Yeah.
Now it's time to get back to work, and no pissing or shitting. That's you can't be doing that.
And so it's kind of, I think it's this real like we're being duped with this entire employment myth that's being crammed down people's throats, as though employment is an essential. We as a society, we need to be employed. We need someone to tell us what to do and to manage our hours of a day. But it's weird that when most people were self-employed, they still got shit done. It's like this idea that, if you don't have a boss, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, you're just going to sit on a couch and like veg out, right? You need some like,
you need
ambitious
someone
person
to add that spark under your butt.
Yeah, you got, how about a full-blown fire, man? Not just a spark.
Okay.
We're talking about raging.
One of those tiger torches.
Yeah.
Your butt.
And so there's a few things. There's a few things that
think about how motivational that would have been to your poor peasants in Europe to think that they could go on across the ocean that might take maybe a month and a half.
Yeah.
They can arrive, be deloused and all that shit, and then with the hope that they could go find themselves a master that kind of like guide them through life.
Yeah.
Instead of this is the misconception.
I'm going
of the
out west to
dream.
get employed.
Yeah, I'm gonna cross an ocean so I can go get a job.
Hopefully, someone that has ambition is gonna set up some manufacturing site somewhere, and I'm going to be a automaton working in there.
Well, and this is the idea that I when we were talking about doing this morning, I think, and the concept of money and the necessity of it. If you're like self-reliant, more or less, a farmer, you don't really need, you need some money to buy tools, and you need to go in and town every once in a while and buy some clothing and stuff like that, things that you can't make yourself. But the necessity for copious amounts of money coming in every month, which is not taxable, by the way. And so I think creating a society where everybody's wage slaves, having to create and make more and more money, makes that money now taxable.
Well, yeah, I mean, and taxable touches on the whole trough of things that basically comes when we have employees and employers, is that you have much more of a taxable pool. You also have much more of an ability to track people, because the entire concept with like being an employee and being paid is that the employer gets that as a write-off, and so he's declaring everything that he's paying you, and so the government has a great way of tracking that. Now, if you're just your own boss, even if you are making money, it could be under the table, really hard to track down how much commerce is going on, when it's going on. If you think of like the social security number that people get, or the social insurance number in Canada, that number is for employment, right? You don't need that number to work for yourself, right? It's really your tax number as an employee, right?
Right.
And so if you go back to the analogy of the small time farmer, he's not paying wages because the family is just working on the farm. They're not really going to the supermarket much because most of their food is coming from the farm. So like you said, I mean, the only amount of money that he's maybe needing is to buy some like farming equipment or tools, possibly seeds, but that would be if he's like too incompetent to gather his own seeds from his own harvest. But like basically you have someone that, as far as the government is concerned, is like he's basically paying almost no tax because he's making no money. And as far as the corporations are concerned, he's a net negative because he's not an employee. He's not providing them with anything to bolster their size and scope and magnitude. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the other thing that I think worked into this master plan of theirs is by going off of the gold standard, even though it was still fractional reserve system.
Yeah.
But you needed, through inflation, you needed so much more livable wage. And it went up astronomically from the early 70s when I got into the workforce. I was getting paid $1.85, which was a little on the low end. But there was a couple of guys actually from Ohio that were also working, and their adult wage was $3.50. Yeah. And also worked for a carpet laying company, and their adult wage, they were paying their guys about $3.50. Now, that discrepancy didn't seem like much, but the cost of living back in the early 70s, before inflation really took off, remember going off the gold standard in 71, and of course Canada followed suit shortly after Nixon's decision. And so the necessity now, where the minimum wage up in Canada, I think, is something like around $17, $18. Now, This has just gone up just to meet the cost of living, which it's still not really meeting. I mean, somebody making $17 or $18, getting all those deductions probably takes home still around a little over $10 an hour, which, it's not a livable wage.
You can't there. I mean, that gets into the thing of basically economic growth is a myth. There is no such thing as economic growth. All it is basically shuffling percentages and numbers around so that you're able to squeeze people a little bit harder and get a little bit more out of them. But as far as, like, if you think of, like, well, people go, yeah, but look at all this, like, building up and everything. Well, all it is consumption. But most of that consumption are finite resources. So
but who has a stake in all this growth?
Well, and also,
like, do we all go? Oh, we collectively we have an interest in it in some way.
Well, look at in the gold rush days, right? You could say, well, look at that. There's a whole bunch of growth, right? But look at how short-lived it was. It didn't take too long before all of that abundance started basically leveling out, and there wasn't gold in every stream anymore.
I think that was the concept of boom and bust originally.
The government found ways to get around people.
We have an outsider here wanting to make her comment. She's taken a long time to make her point. Yeah, okay, so the gist of what she was saying was?
Interpretation?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's talking about going into the realm of control, because really this is what it's all about.
In agricultural, primarily. But, I mean, governmental control would probably...
And having quotas and everything like this. But because what having, like, milk quota is something that I don't know if they have in the States, but we definitely have in Canada. And basically, you need to get a permit to have produced so many liters of milk. And
the quota could be probably, depending on what size of number of cows you have, it could be in the millions. Hey, you made one comment. You're not this isn't, you need your own mic.
if you want to talk, you're going to have to come onto the screen and be filmed.
And you're going to have to be properly dressed like us. Suit and tie and whatnot.
All neat and tidy with a
little professional.
This is one of my finest T-shirts here. So obviously we're striking a nerve with this subject matter because normally my mom's pretty quiet, but she's getting all amped up. See,
well, whenever we talk about farming.
But also, it's so what employment comes down to is centralization, right? And which also ties into, we talked about this.
Well, the capture of human labor.
Yes, and we talked about this in another video, is about these incorporations where a corporation operating as its own legal entity that can operate through many different states, many different nations as its own thing, right? And if you don't have these corporations all employ, because this is the entire necessity for centralization, is you have the centralization of labor, intellectual property, everything is going into this one channel.
Well,
basically.
I think even every small community could say, if it's lucky to boast, it has one major employer. So let's say you got Mitsubishi working a copper mine.
Oh yeah,
or you got Weyerhaeuser working the mill
lumber,
down in Princeton.
Yeah. No, I mean, and this is the thing, is you get these monopolies and everybody's employees to this one employer, right? Now,
and
there's some
way,
people that think that
maybe just slightly mention. I know it's an off topic, but where because of that Nord Stream cutoff of energy into Europe. There was a British company that had this brilliant idea that it would just take every little tree that exists and clear cut it, turn it into sawdust, render it down into pellets, and then ship it back to England. Yeah,
so like if you don't know, there's wood stoves that are they burn pellets, right? Pellets being what's supposed to be is just sawdust that's like compressed down, and then you burn it to heat your home. It's a way of using waste product from milling, and then you're
so
kind of
just
making it more efficient, essentially, so that you don't have any extra waste.
Right.
And so these companies started doing this, but recently they were sold. Because my friend works for them, to a
British company, apparently.
I think it's Drexel, I forget exactly.
This wasn't planned to bring these guys into it. But
whatever. Let me just explain this.
Sure.
And so this company is not for heating homes. It's not for using the wood pellets in a pellet burning stove. It's used to turn a turbine for heating water, superheating it, and then making electricity from that.
Right.
Now, the government of the UK has subsidized this company and given them £1 billion or £2 billion because it's considered green renewable energy. So now, but because this pellet burning furnaces require so much biomaterial, they've been taking the clear-cut trees in Canada, the trees that normally would be used for lumber,
right,
because their demand is so enormous for these wood pellets,
right,
that now you're taking an entire tree, you're grinding this entire tree into sawdust, to then reform into pellet. The idea with the sawdust was a byproduct. That's why you formed it into pellet. So you're also wasting energy, because they have furnaces that heat the pellets and compress them, but they're already wood. So you could just ship wood and burn the lumber, the dried lumber.
Right.
But instead, they're grinding everything into a fine powder and then reformulating it again to then ship it.
Brilliant minds behind
halfway
this.
across the world, burning who knows how much diesel
fuel.
They
got to ship it by rail to Eastern Canada, maybe the Port of Montreal or something like that.
And then burning all this diesel fuel to get it over to England, to burn it in turbines, to then say that it's carbon neutral because it's a renewable sawdust product. That's only a byproduct. But if you're
could
not
just ship them
using
coal, and because what else are you going to use coal for except for heating?
And these are this brings us to another big point about employment and centralization of things. When you have a huge company with many employees, it isn't as efficient. You see, if you have a bunch of small owner operators, they're a lot quicker on their feet. They can change and be more dynamic. Right? Because
it's
you can't
hands-on
have
management too. It's
in the example,
right there in the field.
Yeah.
They know what's going on.
But in the example of like the 1,000 small little cobblers that were making shoes, right? You can't have, like in the case of, let's just say that contract was given to one of these big producers, like maybe North Face or something, but the CEO is got a fucking coke addiction and is completely running the company into the ground.
That's not even alleged. That's just
some,
hypothetical.
Yeah, it is all hypothetical. Finding some cheap Chinese labor to undercut the quality, and the soles are fucking falling off of the shoes. But it's not just happening for a couple, because this is a monopolized fucking shoe manufacturer, so it's making all the shoes.
Well, we could
for
get into
the entirety of the army. So every person that's in the army now has a shoe that doesn't function and is falling apart.
Okay,
you would never have that if you had small owner operators that are giving contracts individually.
Well, he's a little passionate about this because he did endeavor to get into footwear making.
We don't need to tell that story because this applies to literally everything. You can't. Like even if you have these like big franchised like McDonald's and shit, right? See, McDonald's can start feeding people utter garbage meat like across the nation. No, but like across the nation, across the world, right?
You're just speaking hypothetically.
Where if you had small burger chains, you're not going to universally start feeding people human flesh or rat meat or something like this when you have a bunch of small restaurants, because people are going to go, well, this meat is garbage. I'm going to go to this other burger stand.
Yeah, you could shop around and you source out your meat, and you're looking at.
And you'd also maybe know the family.
You might even make yourself a burger with it and see if it's up to snuff.
Yeah, and you would know. So you would have. See, you actually with getting away from the corporate structure, you get way more diversity of options, right? And you end up getting better quality for that, because people, this idea of competition, we don't have competition right now. It's a consortium. It's a hegemony that's like wrapped up into a handful of corporations that are all mutually invested in one another. They're basically one giant conglomerate. So even if you put like an antitrust law and hit them and strike down this business deal, they still own like fucking 15% of their enemy company anyways.
Well, yeah, you don't even know who really the shareholders, let's just say, since you brought up McDonald's, I mean, we don't even know who these never mind the institutional, because it all gets broken down as to individuals who individually owns McDonald's.
And then additionally, what ends up happening is, instead of commerce being in America with small proprietorships that are paying their taxes to the American government, now all of the debt load is placed on the American worker. The actual corporation who's making most of the profits from the products that they're creating go and transfer their headquarters to some tax haven.
Because they're creating jobs.
They're not paying their fair share at all.
No.
Right? So now all we're doing is we're punching down, we're hitting just your blue collar or maybe a few of your white collar workers, getting them to pay all of the taxes, and the corporations are paying almost nothing because they're these multinational corporations. There's no such thing as an American company.
And eventually they devour even your upper level white collar management.
Right. How many of
mean,
these
that's
American
happening right now,
how
for
many
sure.
of these American companies have moved their headquarters to like Ireland or something just to get away from taxes? And if Ireland changes their laws, they can move their headquarters to Dubai or some other country, so they can constantly be shifting and shuffling around.
Right.
See,
So the worshiping of capital. So you hear sometimes these pundits say, well, capital will go where capital gets its best bang for its buck. Well, a nation is not built on its capital. It's built upon its people. The resource is humanity.
right.
So you take the inhabitants of any nation and you take them out of that nation, just make that nation vacant, and put a bunch of capital there. It's not going to do a damn thing.
yeah.
I mean, it might make a great
So-
concept for a bank.
And so here's another concept behind employment. You know that like back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, most of the truck, like long haul truck drivers were owner operators.
Right.
They own their truck and it was like a decent wage or
Paid by the
salary to get,
mile,
right?
and diesel being
and they were
considerably cheaper
choosing
than
how
it is
much work
today.
to take on and everything like that. All that's gone away now. They've like squeezed everybody. They've squeezed everybody out of the market. Now you have these shipping companies, these large shipping companies that basically now hold. They have these employees, these hourly slave wage earners that are basically just making
Call it
a
slavers.
barely livable wage, not choosing their own hours, not choosing what kind of contracts they take. And we don't have diversity of options. You have these large shipping conglomerates, or you have nothing, right? Because they've squeezed everybody else out of the market.
Right.
This is what you get now. You've taken where someone was an owner operator, technically not employed to anybody but themselves, and now we've shifted that all over to we're all just worker bees.
Oh, and by
we're
the way,
all employees.
each one of these entrepreneurs or proprietors could, have their own write-offs, which would encourage them to actually buy more tools, more material, maybe even hire more people, because it's all going to be a write-off.
Yeah.
And they're not going to go offshore because they're not big enough to go offshore for
And when
fleeing taxes.
when you got these large corporations that are fed off of the bodies of their employees, you basically you have nothing. You have no free market. The idea of a free market is a complete myth, because you have a completely centralized root of power. When all of your food is coming from Monsanto genetically modified grains,
Right.
that's not a fucking free market. Are you crazy? Who believes this? Who believes that there's in any way a free market right now? It's a complete monopoly.
Well, we'll have to do just a segment on food scarcity in Nicaragua. Not that
Right.
a whole lot of people would.
No, but there's a lot
imagine.
of food
But
scarcity and food quality.
No, but when you
decline.
got you got these papayas that all come from Hawaii, how many fucking
no local
papaya
papayas.
farms can there possibly be in Hawaii that they're shipping to make sure that Nicaragua's
Oh,
got enough?
No
papayas.
No coconut products either.
No
it's all
cocos.
coming from Thailand.
No coconut milk.
What kind of hellish sort of industrial farm is going on in Thailand where they're basically supplying the coconut milk for the world?
For the world. So you can imagine how many coconuts are being placed upon ships by the megatons and then shipped over to Thailand so they can process all those coconuts in time to squeeze out some milk or cocoa butter, whatever the hell it is.
Not but anyways, the point is that these are these are
wrong plant.
Everything that we've been we're moving towards this at a hyper speed. the age of the employees, which is kind of like the age of like slave labor in a sense. If you don't get enough of a salary to pay for your rent and your food, I don't know what that is other than slavery, because you're not there's no freedom in that, right?
Well,
and if people say, well, if you don't like it, well, just quit your job and get another one. It's the same fucking company that owns everything. They own the food. They own the electronics. They own the cell phone companies.
Right.
They own, it's a conglomerate of where they own literally every facet of human existence. It's the same company. So what the hell are you talking about? If you don't like the job or you don't like the wage, just get a different job.
Yeah,
I mean,
good. I was just thinking though, just getting back to the scale of farming. I mean, even if you had a hobby farm, or you got people in your neighborhood or in your community that have a hobby farm, they have to have it scaled up just enough so that they have more than enough for themselves and they're able to sell some to you. And it has to be a bit of variety. I mean, we have somebody that just gave us a bag of limes, but we're not going to be living. The limes are nice.
I want to go into high finance rather than just the
Sure.
on the ground level, because
I think
it kind of ties into all of our like we've done a few different videos, right?
Right.
Someone like the custodial banks, the pension money,
Right.
the corporations, that are multinational conglomerate corporations with legal status that can survive into perpetuity. But all of these things start tying in together now that we see that, like, if you take away employees out of this scenario, you can't have multinational conglomerates, because no matter how ambitious someone is, if they don't have 100,000 employees underneath them, they're not going to be able to like dominate the entire planet. They have to have an army of people beneath
Well, how
them.
about an army of robots?
Right, but well, maybe, but you have to have the engineers and everything to build those things. And what happens when they start breaking down?
They're
Who's
maintenance free.
They're maintenance free. Yeah, they run on nuclear power, right? So they like will run for
Nuclear,
100,000
solar.
years.
No, they're able to harness wind, solar.
No, I mean all these special, all of our advancements are all theoretical. We don't have these products, these dream products here. We just have this theory. When they're giving a PowerPoint presentation, they're telling us all the things that their robots are theoretically able to do in a controlled laboratory setting. It's all a bunch of bullshit. But the point is that all of this stuff is tied and linked together, right? And
Right.
so if you said the most revolutionary act that a person could do would be to not work and provide their means from living off of their property, of a hobby farm. If you changed America's demographic into a much more rural demographic with more hobby farms, the entire system, the entire global system collapses. You've just done way more than any revolution as far as like firing a gun would ever accomplish, because
Can I
the
say something,
entire debt load is being propped up by workers. Their pension plans. I mean, we're talking about trillions of dollars, tens of trillions of dollars worth of pension money is propping up this. Who's paying all the taxes? Employees, salary paid employees, workers, right? You withdraw yourself from that system, the entire system collapses. And that shows just how much the entire America and the entire world is on the back of the worker. And this is something.
But you'd have to go back. You'd have to, like, region by region, you'd have to take a farm that's now 200 acres, and you have to say, we're going to split up into 10-acre lots. And
yeah, but dude, we don't need to get into the logistics of it. I'm just saying the theory of it.
Right. Okay.
The theory of it is, if you're providing everything that you need to survive, that's great for you. But it would be death to these corporatists, to these. They are vultures. They're not capitalists. They're vultures. They're
yeah, but
feeding.
you can put
They're
together, you got
feeding
vulture
off of you.
capitalism.
Right. It's vulture capitalism. They need your labor.
They need prey to feed on.
Without your tax dollars, without
Which is your labor,
pension being garnished and
again,
and used to pay that debt that you also owe your taxes to, without your labor to basically prop up these multinational corporations and give them centralized power and centralized structure.
That $37 trillion is your collective surety to pay.
Yeah.
Through many years of hard labor.
So this is like the biggest scam of the 21st century is this employment. We need to be employed.
Yeah.
Right? If we can get away from this, we can end up showing just how innovative people really are when they're not under the boot of some large conglomerate and they're actually working for themselves, making their own hours, and they're not hourly slaves to time. They're looking to producing a product, and that's their goal. They're goal orientated, not simply wage orientated.
Right, but
their entire life.
You know, the honest summation would be, though, is that not everybody is that inclined, and some of them are designed to be just workers, like employees.
Well, I think that
just like
if you
early 1900s, you still had
teach
urbanites that worked for other people.
If you take a cattle prod to a pit bull's nuts every day of its life, it's going to be a fighter. It's going to be aggressive.
Yeah, that's
so
gonna
what
be
you're talking no, but so what you're talking about is like, yeah, people, because this is all they know. There are people that have worked since they were like 18 years old, had an employer, been, working that 8 hours a day, 5 days a week or more. And that's what they know. So when you say, oh, but if you take that away, they don't know what to do. That's because that's how they've been trained their entire life. I mean, this is something.
Well, my father, he quit, he quit school when he was 14, and he went because, his dad was in the Second World War. So, and he didn't know what to do with himself when he retired. He kept on, I got to, keep working.
Yeah, but that's, like I say, it's you're ingrained.
As an employee, of course.
You can't teach an old dog new tricks. People get ingrained into them. But you know what? There's also Stockholm syndrome, right? Where people get attached to their captors,
right,
and they form a relationship with their captors. So then if someone says, well, actually, having hostages and capturing people and putting them in your basement in shackles and chained up to the wall in your basement is actually fine because there's some people that have Stockholm syndrome, and that validates the activity. So
are we going to leave it at that?
Yeah, I mean, on that happy note.
Yeah, sure. We got a lot of happy notes to leave.
Yeah, we just
the viewers with.
It's like Hansel and Gretel out here. We're just leaving a trail of happy notes for you to follow.
When we're talking about viewers, we're really speaking in faith. We know it's going to happen. I mean, you're going to at least get 5 views.
I at least know that I'm a fan and I'm watching. So, it's
you're a fan of yourself.
Well, I'm a fan of the show, dude.
Right, yeah. So am I.
The entire we got two people watching.
It's growing exponentially already.
So going out to the two of you guys, just keep your head up, keep your stick on the ice, and we'll see you on Monday with some more golden tidbits.